Well, the problem is that 10 years ago, this summit would not have been possible because it would have been a purely ideological debate between two competing social systems. While today, the essence of the summit is that 185 countries have come together and agreed that we do have a vision, we do have a common vision of a better society. Now, we know that we're far away from that vision, but the fact that we have a vision that the set of countries agree that we have to put people at the center of development again and the economy at the service of human needs is an enormous step forward.
Well, I would hope that something could be accomplished, but I have to confess that on the basis of my own experience and on the basis of looking back at the history, the record of now nearly 50 years of UN-sponsored conferences, they seem to be mostly talking heads talking to each other. And most of the talking heads who come to the conferences are predictable. They tend to be bureaucrats from the various governments involved, and they tend to be a relatively thin layer of academics, most of whose work, of course, is available on the library shelf before they ever go to the conference.
Well, it's a very broad agenda at Copenhagen, and we've been very hard working in the United States to try to narrow the agenda. And our concerns have been, one, to make sure that UN reform is at the top of the list. We think it's very important that the UN, like every other institution in the world today, tighten itself up, become much more efficient, and direct its resources in a lot more effective way.
Much too much is spent on the infrastructure of these conferences. The bureaucracies at these conferences are huge, and they're the people who have mostly pre-written all of the findings, which are barely touched at the conference itself. The other reason for my saying I think they do harm is that among many people in the world who are rather more naive than you and I, and who have innocent but very genuine trust and a lot of hope in the institutions of the United Nations, there I think there's terrible disappointment. The summit is held and nothing changes.
The answer would be, let's do through the peacekeeping operations what we can actually do as UN within the mandates and the limits that we have. Let's not forget that the real function of the UN is to better the quality of life of people in harmony with nature. This is what the Rio Summit on Environment said, and this is what the Copenhagen Summit on People are going to say. So this is a back to a UN that cares for the agenda of people.